Everybody to the right side up. And this is your host, Danielle Strickland, and I'm joined with my co-host.
Same show. I am here as well.
And we're super excited to have a guest with us, Melinda Tankard Reist. She's a really good friend of mine from Australia. She is also, I mean, that's not her greatest accolades, but it's my favorite part.
My favorite.
I mean, I would call you like an advocate, a prophet of solidarity, a justice bringer. You are, and I feel like one of the things, Melinda, is that you are deeply researched, you are passionate, very strategic in the way that you go about this work and this fight for justice against exploitation of girls and women for so many years. And one of the things I think I most admire about you. Yes, exactly. I admire that you do these. I admire that you do all these things, but also I admire just that you keep doing them.
Mm.
Because I feel like people can do these things, but they can't do them for the longevity. Like you have been doing this faithfully, faithfully, faithfully. And to watch you do it faithfully is just such an encouragement to my soul. And it really matters. So thank you. And we've been in the midst of this. You're joining us from Australia, Australia's capital, Canberra. And we've been in the midst of this series on powers and principalities, and how we're in this fight against powers and principalities. And it's a spiritual force of darkness, but also there's systems and ideologies and, ways that are working in the world to kill and to steal and to destroy. And that, the Bible talks to us very clearly and soberly to say, don't be naive about these things. These are real and they need to be resisted and fought back against. And I thought, I don't think we can do this series without you, because you have an insight and your ear to the ground and insights into the dark, deep realities of pornography and exploitation of children and women in the world. And so we need to not be naive about these things.
Mm.
So thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for hearing.
Yeah. And can I just give a trigger warning before we begin? So if you have a trauma in the area of sexuality or anything like that, there will be conversations about those and conversations about sexual abuse and harm and exploitation. So if you need to pause and take care of yourself or skip this one, if this is just going to cause harm to you, please take care of yourself and feel free to do that. And that being said, let's go. Tell us what you're up to, Melinda. Tell us about the reality of the demonic principality of pornography.
Well, since I saw you last and spoke with you last, Danielle, I've continued to stare into the abyss. And what I'm finding is even worse than when you and I last did a podcast together. Pornography is more debased, more degrading, more dehumanizing, and more accessible to children. More little boys are seeing rape porn, torture porn, incest, sadism at the click of a button. And it has deformed an entire generation. Since I saw you, there's new findings, new research, new data on the malign impacts of pornography on this generation of boys especially. And this year, a research paper was published by Ben Matthews et al., Australian researchers, published in the International Journal of Child Abuse and Neglect, that found that adolescent Australian males are now the largest cohort of offenders against children. This has never been seen before, and I have no reason to doubt that data would not be replicated internationally. It's a massive act of abuse, really, of our children, that the adults have allowed this to happen, that the porn industry has been allowed to prey on and groom children to build the next generation of consumers. And we are seeing the fruit of that giant experiment on the sexual templates of our children, the developing sexual templates of our children, playing out in schools around the country with rates of peer-on-peer abuse at levels never before seen.
And that's primarily, I watch your actions on social media, and you're going from school to school to school. So you're not even just talking about academic research, which is really good. You're literally talking about conversations you're having with kids all across the country and other countries.
Correct. So girls are describing routine sexual harassment, sexual bullying, sexual intrusion, sexual intimidation. I have young girls in our primary schools crying in front of me and saying, I don't feel safe at school. I have girls telling me boys want to choke and strangle them, that boys threaten them with rape if they won't send nudes, that boys will threaten to rape their mothers and their sisters if they don't send nudes. Little girls getting unsolicited dick pics, being groped, being touched, being offered money to make porn films for the boys, being compared to the bodies of porn stars. Schools have become hostile environments for girls. They've become sites of abuse. Why would girls want to go to school? I strongly believe that these hostile, harmful sexual behaviours, primarily directed towards girls, are a reason for the rise in school refusal and absenteeism in girls. So these are the stories that I collect. Some of them are accounts that I didn't even imagine, and I'm in some pretty dark spaces. But what I'm hearing in the last year, I'll give you one example. There's another example I'd like to give, but it's in the courts and I can't speak about it. I have domestic violence workers telling me that they're seeing more young women coming in, including schoolgirls, who were forced by their boyfriend to sign sexual slavery contracts. So there are hundreds of sexual slavery contracts available online, and boys are downloading them and targeting girls to sign them. And then the girl realizes she doesn't like being a sexual slave. It's not that great. And in one case, at least one case I've been told about, a girl was bashed up because she decided to breach the terms and conditions of the contract. But, boys have learnt a sense of entitlement. They've been groomed and conditioned to believe that they are entitled to act and behave towards girls however they want. Girls have learnt that they exist purely for sexual gratification, and boys have learnt that they exist for conquest and for taking. So we're killing intimacy, we're killing love. Porn kills love, and we're setting young people up for failure in life and relationships because they don't know how to behave appropriately or respectfully. And, we have millions of dollars going into consent and respect programs here, as I'm sure you do there as well. But we haven't addressed the drivers of harmful sexual behaviours. And Collective Shout, in partnership with a parenting expert and author Maggie Dent, produced this report late last year called Sexual Harassment of Teachers. Really, it should have been called Sexual Harassment in Schools because it's beyond teachers, but we like the acronym SHOT. But we did a survey of 1,000 teachers, and they reported sexual harassment of themselves, but also peer-on-peer sexual harassment. And we published this data at the end of last year, and the teachers identified 3 primary drivers. Pornography was a big one, fueling harmful sexual behaviours, social media, and Andrew Tate et al., the malign influences from the manosphere. Tate's a bit on the wane now, thank God. But 3 years ago when we did the survey, he was still big. Having said that, while he is not as popular now with younger boys, the harm's been done. Like, the harm isn't erased just because he's on the way out, hopefully into a jail cell.
Keep hope alive. I mean, that guy's been openly, literally illegally, openly defying every human concept of decency.
Absolutely.
And no one has stopped him. No one has stopped
Well,
him,
he's a
which is
pimp and a
just like,
pornographer. And to hear
yeah,
Christian leaders saying on Twitter, one in particular said that boys were drawn to Andrew Tate's Christ-like qualities. I had to go after that man for saying that. And even in some Christian circles, they will still say, well, there's a reason boys follow him, and he, does encourage them to higher things. Have you listened to him? Like, I send them a.
well, I can't. I'm like, I can't even.
Well, I asked him.
I can't.
I asked him.
I don't have the kind of thick skin that you have to even do this
Well, we
stuff.
did a
Like,
video compilation of called Andrew Tate in his own words, and foul and vile and violent and aggressive and abusive. But to hear, certain Christian men cite Tate is deeply disturbing to me. I'd really like to quote something I found recently by Laura Bates in her book Men Who Hate Women. She says, young boys have seen misogyny online so often and heard it promoted so persuasively that they wouldn't even recognize it as a form of hate. The next generation is being indoctrinated into deep women hatred from both sides. What will this mean for society, for girls and women? These are our future lawmakers, lawyers, police officers, jurors, and voters. These are the boys, girls will have to grow and grow up and live with. And this keeps me awake at night. I think, where these boys, when they leave school, they'll become judges adjudicating in a rape trial, or police officers or members of parliament, God help us. And they were engaging in harmful sexual behaviours from primary school. What do you think's going to happen there? How do you think that's going to work out in terms of, doing justice when they've been aroused by violence against women from a young age? The most popular genres of pornography are the most violent. And we are going to see more violence, more suffering, more sexual harassment, and more coercive control. As a result, the pornography industry is the biggest department of education in the world. And the Best
Wow.
Consent and Respect program can't compete with a multi-billion-dollar industry deliberately dropping porn into the feeds of young boys. I mean, this is a science. They've studied it. It's time to introduce.
9-year-old boys, right? I mean, at least when I was last in the research, they're aiming for 9-year-old boys.
Correct.
I'm sure it's younger now, but
And most of them are first seeing it on social media. They're not even going to designated porn sites. It's been dropping into their social media feeds. Another emerging threat, well, it's not even emerging. We were calling it emerging, but it's actually upon us, is the rise of AI-enabled deep fake, sexually explicit forgeries, sexually explicit images of women and girls. Now, we use deep fake because it's in common use. However, what it disguises is this is a real face of a real woman and the real face of a real girl. So there are 127 nudifying, undressing, and face swap apps, which will turn any woman into a naked image and turn any woman into a porn genre. These are easily available. Some are free. Some are available for as little as $2. Hugely popular, no laws against them. I mean, these apps are, the payments for them are facilitated by, PayPal, MasterCard, Visa card. These are mainstream. These are mainstream. And there's a whole economy, a whole ecosystem that keeps this supply pipeline of women that you can turn into a porn genre. You can cover her in semen. You can tie her up. The semen ones are very popular, by the way. Tie her up, bind her, to make her pregnant, put a hijab on her if that's what turns you on. You can make her your personal sexual slave. You can make her a maid. And these apps, these tech platforms reinforce the idea that all women are porn, that all women exist as masturbatory material, and that people like us, women like us, have no right to stop that. And so we are meeting girls, we're meeting female teachers that this has been done to, and the trauma is massive. The teacher knows that multiple numbers of boys are getting off on having violated her in this way, shared it with their friends. Boys are trading the images, they're selling them. There's whole global platforms that exist for trading these deep fake images, buying and selling them requests. Can you give me an image of this girl from this town? Like, they name the towns. So they're often image-based abuse. So the images have been shared in trust with a partner, and then he's shared it. Now a new version is to create the AI deepfake images of a woman or girl and share that. And again, we need a global moratorium on AI. We need a global ban on AI deepfake tech platforms. So that's what we're calling for. We've consulted at the UN level on this. I noticed just yesterday, Denmark has come up with a very interesting thing. Denmark is changing their copyright laws to protect our faces and our voices. And I think this is really something. I think this is really special that we have the right to protect our faces, our unique faces, our unique voices, and that no one should be allowed to steal it. And in the case I'm talking about, turn us into porn using our real faces. So these images are scraped from social media profiles. They're increasingly taken from official school photos. So special events, graduations, school ceremonies, end of year celebrations. They're taking the images from the school photos and morphing them even into porn videos. You can make videos, 15-minute videos using those images. And so I like where Denmark's going on this. We need to use every lever at our disposal to rein in these multi-billion-dollar corporations who don't care about civilization, society, human connection and bonds, and are doing moral injury on a mass scale like we've never seen before. It's time that the big tech pros were reined in and that we don't allow their vested interests to come before community safety and, I would say, civilization. I don't want to sound like
Yeah,
a
yeah,
statue. I don't believe I am. I think we are under threat from these technologies which debase and degrade primarily women and girls. Because note, these tech um, platforms only work on the bodies of women and girls to turn them into porn, which again really
really.
impacts
Wow.
this, doesn't it?
Well, this is one of the things I think, like, so there's so many questions I have. Like, one, I think it's horrifying to awaken to the reality of where this has gone, although not surprising because we refused to listen earlier.
Hmm.
And there has been such
Correct.
a weird and kind of paralyzed approach to pornography in general. Or there's been like a harmful approach to it. So, like you and I, back in the day when I was in Australia, we used to talk a lot about porn as a justice issue, not just a moral issue, where Christians would really go like, you're a bad boy if you look at porn. And we'd be like, no, you're just a boy who is being, targeted
Hmm.
by an industry and a demonic power of darkness to try to capture and shape your mind and your relationships and then turn you into a predator. So, and this is, I'm the mother of three boys. So I'm just like, I refuse to agree with a culture that says boys will be boys. And by that, they mean predators. I'm like, no, I actually refuse that outright. But we've allowed pornography to do that. And then this is like, this will never end. Like, there's no way to end the dark variety that this will bring.
Correct.
What do you think
Not
is the
reform.
reluctance? Like, why aren't people?
Well, don't stand in between a man and his right to masturbate and to orgasm to whatever he wants, and don't stand between what's right and good and true, and the right of the global sex industry to make billions of dollars out of human degradation, torture, and suffering, and turn the world into a place that is unsafe for every woman or girl. One of the problems we have is with this whole idea of free speech. Well, this doesn't deserve free speech protection. I mean,
It's hate speech.
it's hate speech, and it
No.
leads to real harms against real women and girls. And the industry itself is harmful to the women in it. This idea it's just fantasy. There's real women being choked, being tortured, being violated, being bound, being tied up, being ejaculated on. And those are real women too, and that has then a flow-on effect to all of us. So we've had this sort of individualized approach. Oh, I have a right to watch whatever I want. Well, actually, I don't think you do, because there's a real flow-on effect there that causes terror in real life, in the real lives of real women and real girls. And I talk to them, every day. So, what kind of world are we creating? Like a culture that celebrates using women as objects to do whatever you want to cannot be a safe place for women or girls. Like what kind of civilization is this? You can't say that you want to have a good world, a peaceful world. You can't talk about respect and then say, well, I demand my right to porn as well. Like you just cannot have both. It's incompatible. Porn is incompatible with civilization, with human flourishing. We're part of a global campaign of Bring Down Pornhub. And Pornhub's been forced to remove close to 90% of its content because it was
Hmm.
rape, it was child sexual abuse, it was trafficking content, it was non-consensual image sharing. And, our very dear colleague Isla Mickleswaite has just been extraordinary in taking on Pornhub, globally. And, in the US, 17 states now have moved for age verification, which we're pushing for here. And in any state that passes age verification laws to protect children from exposure to this content, Pornhub shuts up shop and moves out because it doesn't want to comply. It refuses to comply. So they won't
Wow.
even agree to we should protect children, you know?
Well, that should be, I mean, like the question is, why wouldn't every single state, country in the world put age restriction on torture porn, like on porn? That is like, why? What would prevent countries from doing that? What on earth?
Well, again, money, power. You know, this is a very powerful industry. It's up there with drugs and the weapons trade in terms of wealth and influence and power. And it's hard to compete with that. It's really hard to compete with that, you know. But we're giving it a good go. You know, history will show we tried. How dare this industry recruit children? You know, how dare it trade in rape and torture and degradation of women and racism. Like, we're trying to get rid of racism everywhere in society, except in porn, where, you know, there's whole genres of porn using indigenous, using
Right.
disabled women, using, you know, girls with Down syndrome is a whole genre. You know, I don't know if you've seen this Down syndrome filter. Well, you're not on TikTok. Good on you. Save your soul. So porn stars now, porn content creators, as we call them, or mattress actresses, it's a new word, use a Down syndrome filter for OnlyFans to look like they have Down syndrome because men want that. Like, this is the demand. Like, you've got to look at demand before you look at supply. There's a market for that. So they're turning themselves into Down syndrome porn. Like, you know, like, what's next?
Yeah, it's like we're speechless. I don't, and
It's rare
how
for
is
the
that?
two of us. That's quite that might be the first actually. That's
Sorry.
You know,
Yeah, sorry.
this does bring
no,
up
it's
something that
okay.
I often I often have to tell myself again and again is evil doesn't make sense. It's just dark for dark's sake. Like, it's just evil for evil's sake. It's just anything that will kill and steal and destroy, it will do to simply kill, steal, and destroy. Like, I keep trying to make sense of evil. Do you know what I mean? Like, I keep getting caught into that's that principality of power. I'm like, how does this make any sense? You guys aren't going to win. Nobody's going to win. Like, I even think of those, lawmakers or lack of protection for children around pornography. And it's like, oh, great, you got elected, but your kids are now going to suffer forever. Like, their relationships are it's going to be exponentially bad for all of the culture. And congratulations, you got your seat. Like, what are we doing? It's like we've lost our mind, but evil doesn't make any sense. Like, darkness literally, or there's a blindness. Do you think that people are blind to the reality and they just keep believing the thing that's the easiest thing to believe?
I think there's a few factors, Danielle. I think there's the money trail, like follow the money, because that tells you a lot. Follow the money, that tells you a lot. I think there is a naivety. Like 10 or plus so years ago, we were warning of what was going to happen, and we were mocked and made fun of and derided and made about us, mocking us. And, you know, everything we said, everything we predicted has come true, which gives me no pride to say I wish we'd been wrong. It
Yeah.
make me glad that we were right. I wish we'd been
Yeah.
wrong. You've got also a culture which tells, you know, girls, you are only your bodies. That's it. You have nothing else of value. And so they think that's the only way that they can get compliments and accolades and attention. They're being taught, groomed from a very early age that this is what women do. And then again, boys are being groomed as takers, and to think that this is how boys should act and behave. Then you've got, yeah, naive parents that have no idea. We've got whole systems and structures that move us in this harmful and dangerous direction. Like, these are parasitic ecosystems, and they all work off each other. If I don't know that I can explain it, because there's so many elements and levels to it, and so many grifters and hangers on that benefit from this parasitic ecosystem. Some of it is trauma related. Someone like Lily Phillips, I look at her and I think, you know, this is a trauma spiral. And she says she was exposed to porn at 8 or 9 years old. And she said, it's all I've ever known, right? And now she's, you know, allowing herself to be violated by hundreds of men at a time and claims to like it. You know, I look at her and I see a traumatized, damaged person. But then I'm torn because I look at Bonnie Blue and I see something that's more sociopathic. And I rarely would say that about another woman but, predatory grooming boys trying to come to Australia to use barely legal schoolboys to film for OnlyFans and advertising for that openly. We got that visa. We were part of a campaign to get her visa cancelled. But to say that you want to be violated, to advertise that you're going to put yourself in a cage in London and allow 2,000 men to sexually use you in a day. I mean, just yesterday, I saw another video of all the men lining up to abuse Lily Phillips once again. Within a few short hours of advertising, they had to say, it's closed now. We're over capacity. We can't take any more of you, because the men were lining up for miles to come and violate.
And on video.
They're all
Like,
came
that's the other thing too, is like, you are unashamed of
Yeah.
lining up to be one of the men that will violate
Correct.
this traumatized,
Correct. So there's no
messed up
shame now.
person.
There's no shame. And I know, it's not popular to say things like this, but bring back shame. Like, because shame can lead to the
Like shame
awakening of
rightly placed. Not bad shame, but shame rightly placed. Like, there are
like,
things
there
we
shouldn't
should
be
be ashamed
any
of.
shaming
Yes.
anymore. So as a result,
Yes.
anything is possible. Anything is allowed under this guise of individual so-called a choice, without again examining those systems and structures. And I see something called the Bop House, if I can talk about that.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a deep dive into TikTok, Lord have mercy, seriously. Talk about, soul destruction. And I've been researching the something called the Bop House. So this is a porn production house for OnlyFans. It's what I'm calling the TikTok to OnlyFans pipeline. So TikTok is essentially the pimp and recruiting girls to be sold on OnlyFans. Now, if you first saw it and you didn't know this was about porn, it would look to you like, say, the Mickey Mouse Club, or it would look like a sorority or a girly sleepover. So they're having fun, they're always dancing, they're miming songs, they're in fluffy slippers and pajamas or little crop tops and leggings, and they're having girly fun times, right? Girls are applying to be in the Bop House. They're sending in videos. We want to join too. We want to be part of this whole fun, girly, enterprise. Now, two of the younger girls, the most youngest looking, are making 4 to 6 million a month. And I have to talk to girls in schools about what they have to do for that money because you wouldn't initially know what they have to do. It looks like, luxury houses, holidays. They're showing how many cars they own. But some of
They're
these
famous. So they're famous,
famous,
they're rich, and they're celebrities. Like,
correct,
that's the very thing everybody wants to
famous
be
on
these days.
social media first,
Yeah.
and then that builds their subscriber base, their paid OnlyFans subscriber base. Now, to give you examples of what these girls have to do. And meanwhile, TikTok's terms and conditions says no sex industry promotion. So what a freaking joke, because this is all sex industry embedding and normalization on TikTok, the most popular platform for children, just by the way. So one of the girls, Julia, who recently did a collaboration with Bonnie Blue, I shared on that. Bonnie Blue threw her to about a dozen masked men and said she's ready for sex. She's ready now, boys. The whole scenario was that Julia hadn't had sex before and she's just a young girl and she's scared, and Bonnie Blue's teaching her about sex. And she's thrown to all these masked men who then, pin her down. So Julia is in the Bop House. Julia did an interview recently with another Bop woman called Camilla, who's a little bit older and acts like a sort of a madam of the house. She would deny that, but that seems to be her role. Anyway, Julia's talking about her new man that she's seeing. Now, bear in mind, this isn't just online porn performance. They do real world, real life sexual prostitution as well. So she's seeing this guy, Brad, and Brad is a father. Brad's had a terrible thing happen. His two daughters have died. He's paying her to act like one of his daughters. So he's subscribing to her OnlyFans to be a daughter to him, right? Like, shouldn't this ring alarm bells?
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's doing
Yep.
adjacent acts for this man and she says, and this is the new property. He's just bought me this new property. So everything they do is absolved because of wealth, because of money, the property, the cars, the money, but at what cost? What profiteth a woman? So gay in the world and lose her soul. I can't help but think of that, when I see these girls. And in Australia, there's a very big name in Queensland where you're going, and massively popular, a blue-eyed Kayla Jade. And these women are sponsored by companies, big name brands, smaller companies. They get millions of dollars in free stuff. The companies have, again, no shame in aligning themselves with these women who are selling themselves as pornography. This one woman in Brisbane did a scenario recently where she said, come with me, get ready with me as I, do my makeup and get my new clothes and get my nails done. The job involves a client who is an Australian CEO who has a sexual attraction for his 22-year-old secretary. Instead of hitting on the secretary, he looks online for someone that looks like her. He finds blue-eyed Kayla Jade, and he pays her $10,000 to dress and act like his secretary and to have sex with him in the role of his true life secretary, right? And the comments are, what a good man. How ethical. He could have hit on the secretary, but he went to you. And aren't you such a great person? You're such an ethical person, blue-eyed Kayla Jade, because you spared the secretary. Now, can you imagine how the secretary would feel? He sent photos and videos of the secretary to her to act out. But everyone thought this was moral and ethical. Right? Isn't
Well,
this?
this is part of that Australian and all of the people who buy into the idea of sexual exploitation as legitimate work, which
Yes.
is maybe one of the deepest demonic lies ever. It's like a bold-faced lie. It's hard to believe anybody can lie that way with a straight face because all of the evidence suggests otherwise. So again, it's this like, and without saying it out loud, what they're saying is it would be better for men. So there's all these assumptions that men have to have sex with people when they want and as they want and in the ways that they want. So again, it's just like, male privilege, like gone mad. And then also this idea that some women are better than others.
Yes.
Like this idea that there's a class system. So this is the other thing. All the research around sexual exploitation suggests that it's a literal classism system
Right.
where women who are less educated, who come from the margins, who have trauma in their background, who, nobody's looking out for, who are vulnerable, are the ones who are in this industry, and they're the expendable ones. And isn't that beautiful? Because that prevents these other ones who supposedly are better from the harm, which also is not true, by the way. When you act on impulses that are evil and dark, they don't stop the impulses, they promote them, right? They promote them. So then the harm is exponential eventually.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I take my heroin, that makes me not want heroin anymore. That's not how
Right.
this works. I am
That's right.
I'm very interested, and we've kind of talked about in a lot of different ways, just how often these things are presented as positive. So whether it's kind of empowering or freeing or beautiful, and all the kind of dark forces kind of do this, right? When you look at let's say adverts to Vegas and everyone's having fun and throwing dice and what a great time, and it's just a nightmare when you go there. This is awful. Like everyone's awful, and
Right.
and again, people are just being so exploited. And in the
Yes.
same way, I think this lie has been presented over and over again. Like, hey, well, these women are empowered and they get to do what they want. I remember reading a book called Female Chauvinist Pigs like 20 years ago, and it kind of blew my mind a little bit.
Thoroughly. Yes.
Yeah, amazing. Just amazing, right? And just like how
Behind
people
me
have
on my
been.
shelf, actually.
Oh, it's one of them, is it? And I think I went to one of the women who attends the church that I pastor. She works for a human trafficking charity. Amazing, amazing woman doing amazing work. And I went to one of her workshops because I want to learn about things like this. And she said, one of the things that's been really helpful actually is if we just talk about how ugly, and she talks especially about like exploitation and trafficking of underage women usually, where and they usually caught through social media platforms and talk about that. But she really just talks about how awful things are. And she said the thing is there are some people, mainly men, who even if you say this is an awful thing and this person has been exploited and their life has been ruined and this is assault and rape and all of these things, they will still watch it, and in fact they might seek it out. But actually a lot of people, if they knew how truly evil and awful and sinful and cruel and all these things that it is, then maybe actually that moves the needle a little bit. Like, actually, I think a lot of people, and I could be wrong, I suppose, and maybe that's what's different. I guess it's interesting listening to say, I don't know, I'm in my late 30s and apparently the world has passed me by, right? Like you're talking all these apps and how's am I don't know any of this stuff. My hope would be that at least if a lot of people were more aware of how evil these things are, they will be less drawn to it, because it's much easier to go, well, everyone's having a good time here. But once we're aware, but it seems like what you're telling me is actually if people are seeking that out, I don't know what to tell her now. That's
I agree and partly disagree.
and you know way more than me do, so I am.
I had a young man approach me at the Justice Conference, Danielle. I think it was the one that you and I were both sharing a platform at in Melbourne. And I remember we're trying to sneak off and just talk to each other, or we're trying to wear hoodies and stuff because we're trying to. Everyone kept approaching you. I'm like, no, I want 5 minutes with this woman. But leaving that aside, this boy came up to me and he said, no, he wrote to me afterwards, and he said, after hearing you speak, I realized that I'd become a patron of the global sex industry, and that every download was contributing to the trafficking of women
Yeah.
into porn and prostitution. And he said, I couldn't live with that. So he still had a conscience, right? But those boys are rare, right? Those boys are rare
Okay.
because remember, the neural pathways are still developing. And
Yeah.
when adolescent, particularly males, are seeing rape porn, torture porn, incest genres from a very young age, and they're aroused by that, and they get a massive dopamine hit from that, it's rewiring them, and they seek out more and more aggressive, debased, and violent content, and they want that. And they end up consuming child sexual exploitation material because all the other stuff no longer gives them a hit. Now, you're possibly a little bit more, or maybe a little bit less damaged than I am. But, remember, 85% of men in churches are consuming porn. So how do you change the world how do you tell the world what to do? How do you evangelize when you've got, your trousers down your ankles every night and a bottle of lube in your hand? Like, it's just not possible. You can't say I'm against violence against women and
Yeah.
masturbate violence against women. It's just
Yeah.
not compatible. So I think a lot of these men do know it's harmful, do know that real women are used, real women are trafficked into the industry, but they get off on it. That's the reality. The
Yeah, and also
content
there's not a lot of avenues for help because we don't
Yeah.
talk about it. We keep it
Yeah.
secret. We pretend
Correct.
like it's not a problem. We keep
Correct.
pretending like everybody's fine when they're not. So, and I think that's one of the big problems is that we keep it in this bucket of like, that's like, I feel like every single, like I just rewatched with my family Fight the New Drug film series.
Yes.
And it's, I mean, and I'd love to hear some more resources that you recommend
Yes.
for people. But that one, it's really super easy. They're 30-minute things on what porn does to the brain, what porn does to relationships, and then what porn does to the world.
Yes.
And it is well done. The videos are fantastic. They're interesting. They're true. They're accurate. And what it does is it takes porn out of this moral problem with individuals and into this invitation to one, this is happening.
Yes.
So like, welcome to the real world. And two, we can change it.
Yes.
We can actually fight back against this. And I think it should be mandatory viewing for every youth group, for every church, for every school. Like there's no reason why it shouldn't be mandatory viewing for everybody to say like, this is happening. This is not 85% of men in churches, right? So
Some
then
of
when
our
we're
Australian
talking,
data has shown, a survey of churches
yeah,
has showed that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you, and I do believe there is hope, and I don't want to suggest that there's not, because I know that there is, and I have met men whose lives have changed, but they had to take radical action, radical action. No excuses, smashing phones, destroying computers, limiting time online, having accountability partners, being transparent, being open about it. They have to do the hard work. I wrote a book called He Chose Porn Over Me, Women Harmed by Men Who Use Porn. And those men did not want to change. They didn't want to do the hard work. The partner would make all the appointments, all the therapies, set everything up, be the accountability partner, check on everything, having to police it. He didn't want to change. And this is a particular problem in faith communities, I've found, where the woman is told you can't break the marriage, you can't break the marriage vows, you have to stay in your love will lead him back to Jesus. And they've tried this for a decade or 20 years. And he's still pursuing the sex industry, actually seeing, prostituted women. He's got multiple, online conversations going with multiple women. He's on OnlyFans. He's following the Bop girls. He might even be on Tinder, and Christian leaders have told her, "Don't break the marriage." Hello, like who's broken the marriage here? Is she supposed to sacrifice her entire life for a man who prefers his porn over her? And still gets to have that nice family image and that family persona and still go to church as a family and still consume the porn industry. But where
Yeah,
there
and even young women, I've had many conversations with young
yes,
women who say to me, I can't find a guy that
no,
doesn't watch porn.
you can't.
I can't find a guy who is not, and should I watch it with him? Like, this is the invitation, is like, if we watched it together, then maybe it's not so bad. And I'm just like, run away, then don't get married. Like,
Yeah.
literally, like, let's not, like, that is not it. But Melinda,
Don't even
talk
get
to
me
us about
started.
that.
Honestly.
Like, that's a whole thing, isn't it? Is like, let's do it together, and somehow that will remedy the issue.
No, it's awful what women are told they have to do. One of the worst examples was a female American Christian leader who wrote a book about it. And she wrote a book about how she did whatever her husband said, including a threesome. But Christian couple. And she said, but we sin too. We all sin, and we've got to acknowledge our own faults and where
What?
we
Oh, I'm so bored of that bullshit. It's just so
yeah.
tiring.
So the advice that women are given, including watch it with him, but let's watch women being tortured and degraded and debased and have ejaculate
Yeah,
running
because
down the
that's
face of your
definitely going to
arm.
help our relationship.
Let's just
That'll
Yeah.
help him see me as more of
He doesn't
the
want to see it,
divine image of God. Yeah, that'll
right?
help.
She doesn't want to see it at all. This is just whitewashing and appeasing his conscience because he'll feel better if he can rope her into it to watch it with him. I have a series called Ask the Therapist with a friend of mine, a psychotherapist, Paul Laverne. And they're very short snippets. They're all on our social medias, Ask the Therapist. We ask a question a week that a woman has asked. All kinds of things like, he says it'll make him a better lover. He'll be a better husband because he'll be more relaxed. We watch it together. It'll bring us closer together. Every excuse possible to absolve him for getting off on the degradation of women and trying to rope her into it, to make him feel better. I've had women told by church leaders, give him more sex. It'll cure him. And it doesn't. I've had women say that men say, oh, if you provide porn for me, I'll stop looking. So she's got to become porn. She's got to do porn acts. She's got to film herself or let him film her so that he can treat her as porn. So he won't go online. Like, these are not solutions. These are not solutions. I've met two young Christian women, early 20s, who were married to Christian men, and they were told by their church leaders when the young man said he had an issue with porn, get married, it'll fix it. And she wasn't told. She wasn't told. So, she's not your methadone. She's not your cure. You fix yourself, get help.
Did it fix it?
Right.
Did
No,
it ever fixed it? Has it? I mean, she fixed it. Yeah, that's the.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Yeah, it
Spoiler
didn't work.
alert, turn yourself into porn won't solve his compulsive porn use. If he wants to change, he can change. But it takes radical action that a lot of men are not prepared to do, sadly.
Yeah. What are your best, who are the people that are offering the strategies that you recommend for people that are listening to this going, oh, I'm so horrified. I had no idea it was this level. I mean, one, maybe don't let your kids have some of these platforms. Two, I think, like, even me recently, I'm like, I've got to up my ante on paying attention and setting up real standards of like what's allowed and what's not allowed and what my kids are doing on their
Yeah. We need to act personally. We need to act politically. So personally, limit devices, delay access to smartphones. All the data is solid on this now. Every year of delay will make a difference. The work of Jonathan Haidt, his book, The Anxious Generation, free newsletter called After Babel, which I highly recommend, on the benefits of delay and the limiting the harms, limiting the exposure for as long as you can, not having devices behind closed doors in bedrooms. You know, we would say if you knew a parent and they allowed their kid behind a closed door with a stack of porn magazines, you would be alarmed. You might contact child welfare. We allow our children behind closed doors with internet-enabled devices full of porn and full of predators. What do you think's going to happen? Like, we have not acknowledged that this is a grenade that will blow up in your child's face. So what do we model in the home? Do we allow the violent music? Do we allow our kids to follow Andrew Tate et al.? Do we allow sexist banter and so-called joking? Do we allow brothers to make just, inappropriate comments about girls' bodies and what they're eating? What are we modeling? It's not always what we say, it's what we do. So what do they see in the home? Do we have all of the filtering devices? Do we have limits on screen time? Do we all hand our phones in at night to charge in a separate place outside of the bedrooms? Do we get our kids outdoors doing other things? Then the collective action, because it's too hard for parents on their own. This is not just about, slack parenting. Kids in so-called good homes are being exposed to porn every day. It may not be in the family home, the school bus, the school camp, the schoolyard, the classroom, the sleepover at the friend's house, the sporting event, are common sites of exposure. So we need our regulatory bodies, we need our governments to stop offloading their ethical duties to protect the most vulnerable onto citizens like ourselves, because it's too big and too hard, and it is getting worse by the day. What police are telling me now, they're seeing more boys sharing Animal Crush videos, extreme torture, extreme violence, decapitations, beheadings. We're losing empathy, and this is my biggest fear, is the death of empathy, the ability to feel, to enter into the suffering of another person, which is, the incarnational message, entering into the suffering of others. And we're losing that. Teachers telling me kids are crueler, meaner. They don't care if someone suffers. They'll watch live stream suicides and not feel anything. They'll just move on to the next trending video, because we have gamified violence. Violence is a game, it's entertainment. Collective Shout got rid of a game on the Steam gaming platform called No Mercy, a rape and incest game, first-person realistic player games where they're raping their mother to punish her for some indiscretion. Now, we got rid of that with a viral campaign, which was great. However, we have since found at least 200 more of those rape and incest games, very popular genres. There's a whole gaming genre called the not safe for work incest community, just by the way. That's a thing. But we have also found on the Steam and itch.io platforms child abuse rape games, where you choose to abuse a child in the way that you want to abuse a child. Now, how is it that we don't have enough common ground to say these should be outlawed? This is free speech. This is not artistic expression.
This should be like a recipe for arrest. Like, this isn't even a no-brainer. Like, you just arrest those people, charge them with a criminal offense. It's like, done. And I'll take a download of your user base and arrest every one of them too.
So this is where we need the political remedy, the remedy of just and right laws, which is why we're calling for more action, more transparency and accountability required of big tech platforms, and not allowing big tech platforms to facilitate grooming and predation and the sharing of child exploitation material. Meta is now encrypted. Police are saying they will not see 90% of child exploitation material shared through Meta platforms because Meta moved to encryption. So that's just one example of a lack of corporate social responsibility on big tech platforms. We also have a global campaign to ban child sex abuse dolls and replica child body parts, which are legal in most parts of North America. They're not legal here in Australia. Again, this isn't free speech, right? The data, the research.
Where can people join that? Where can people join?
Collectiveshout.org.
Collectiveshout.org.
Campaign to run We're a small team. We punch above our weight. We are running global campaigns to ban AI deepfake apps. We are running global campaigns to ban child sex abuse dolls. So these are replica, lifelike, custom-made, penetratable dolls, and men send in photos of real children. There are 23 factories in China alone that manufacture these dolls and ship them out all over the world. And there's not even a global ban on them. Australia has led the way in banning these replica children, infants, baby body parts. We went underground as buyers. The stuff they were sending us, I can't even describe it, like babies, replica babies, realistic. So there's a different market. Again, there's a demand for this. And we have to live in a world with men that want this. Like, the world is a dangerous place for women and girls. That's a fact. So we need you. Collectivesharp.org. Last year, I'll give you some good news stories now. Would you like a couple of good news to go out on? All right. I don't want to go with the bad news. I need the good news too. So last year was our record year. We had
Well, just pause for a second. You are the good news, Melinda. Just to say that right now, your fight against this evil and your willingness to go stare at the abyss so other people don't have to is part of the good news. You are a demonstration of how good God is.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I just want to point out, that you are good news in this, and Collective Shout and all of your people that do this good work.
I'm curious about this. Why do we not talk more often? Seriously, you can give me pastoral care every day.
Yeah.
I will
Well, you better know you're on my prayer list. So I hope you feel something.
I'm very grateful, Danielle. I really am. So
yeah, tell us the good news. Okay.
Good news. So lives changed. Boys stopping using porn. Girls saying no is a complete sentence, the title of my next book. I'm allowed to say no. I'm allowed to put boundaries in place. I worked with a group of girls last month who, when I said, what did you learn today? We weren't born for porn. We're better than porn. We deserve more than porn. We deserve to be loved, right? Just something like that now and then will keep me going. Also, then last year, collectively, we had 34 victories. 34. We're a team of 5 women. We're tiny. 5 victories against multi-million to multi-trillion-dollar corporations.
Yeah.
We got those child sex abuse dolls of 5 e-commerce platforms. One of those platforms was a $1 trillion company. And yeah, so 34 wins. You can read about those on our website last year. This year, 22 wins so far. We got Andrew Tate's pimping courses off Spotify. We got Andrew Tate's How to Pimping Hose course off SoundCloud. We got the No Mercy game off the Steam platform. So we bring people together in a common cause. You can make a change. Some of our victories have been in 2 hours. Some have taken 10 years. But, we are in this for the long haul, and at least history will show we tried. I'll tell you a story, a personal encounter I had with a young woman called Victoria Sinners. Now, Victoria heard me speak in the biggest church in Melbourne. I was speaking at all the services on porn, sexualization of children, OnlyFans, and what could we do about all of these things. And this young woman comes up to me after one of those services. She says, I haven't been in church since I was 10 years old, and I thought I'd come today. And it's the day that I'm speaking in this church on OnlyFans. She says, I run Australia's largest OnlyFans recruitment agency, and I hate myself. So I said, let's have lunch together. So we had lunch together, and she told me that her role was to go through girls' social media accounts and recruit them, groom them. She describes herself as a predator and a pimp. And she would tell them they were hot, they had the look that this agency wanted, that she could help them make untold amounts on OnlyFans. Would they come in for a meeting? Then she described the process of breaking down their boundaries. They would come in saying, I won't do A, B, and C. And within a short time, she'd get them to do those things because it's the only way they would make money. And her recruitment agency got a cut for every woman they recruited onto OnlyFans. Within a week, she quit the job. Within a couple of months, she was baptized. And now she has a global platform. She's just come back from 2 months in the US, speaking all over the country, doing global podcasts, and she's become a global whistleblower against OnlyFans and the way that OnlyFans operates and the secret tools they use to recruit women into the industry. So that's a good story, and I never get tired of hearing it.
Also, that's a good story. And also, I want to highlight for people who are listening to this, if you're a church leader or you go to a church or something like that, this is part of why it's really important for churches to speak about the demonic principality of pornography and sexual exploitation and violence against women, which are all one spirit that hates women everywhere. And I think it's important because this is some of the Melinda, I don't know if I ever told you this, but when I was in Australia and we did that Salvation Army invasion of Sexpo
Yes.
and tried to kind of like anyway,
Well, that
years later
yes.
I was sharing, for podcast people, I'll tell you another time, but I was sharing the story at a church in California, and a really big church there. And I was just sharing this, what a funny kind of cool part of the story. At the end of the message, I went off, stage right or whatever. And then the pastor came and got me and said, "Hey, can you come talk to this woman? I can't talk to her and she needs to talk to you." So I went out and I was like, "Hi, who are you?" She's like, "I was a porn star at that event." She said, "I was furious that the manager let you guys in. I was absolutely furious about it." She said, "I remember I hated you guys." And she said, "I went after that event and I kept getting dreams and I kept getting so disturbed. And God called me back to my church, called me out of the sex industry and told me, 'I want you to be a bridge to the sex industry.'" She said, "I went on to go to Bible college, married a church planter. I happened to be on holidays in California and just randomly picked this church to come to. And you're the one like I was there." She's like, "I was there. And I want to say this, I never did it. I never did what God told me to do. And I think I'm here because God's like, you've got to get involved. Like you have to get people out of this industry." And I was like, only God, and that's part of the good news. Again, just one tiny little thing that we do, every single thing that you do when you're fighting against darkness matters. And the other thing I think we have to keep in mind, as deep as the darkness is, the light is more powerful. In the end, the light is more powerful than the dark. And sometimes I don't think we believe it, but we should,
Yeah, I have to
because
believe
it's
it, or
true.
I couldn't keep doing this work. It would
Yeah.
be too hard, but seeing the changed lives makes a big difference. 2 weeks ago, I was addressing 70 church leaders in Sydney, and there was a woman sharing the platform with me who had come out of the sex industry. And in tears and great grief and pain, she told her whole story of being abused as a child, being in a church, and she told church leaders of the abuse, and no one believed her, and she ended up in the sex industry, this terrible trajectory of drugs and violence and abuse, and ended up in the sex industry and is out of it now. And she told the mostly male pastors in the room of her story of not being believed, and that where that led her. And a number of the male pastors crying in front of her asked her forgiveness. That was deeply moving, deeply affecting,
Yeah.
and it healed something.
Yeah.
It healed something in her.
Yeah.
She wrote about it later on her Facebook, to have these men say, "We failed you. We weren't there for you. We didn't believe you." And
Right.
I thought I'd tell that story based on what you just said about, these things are being shared, they're being told in our churches, and, help women. This is not part of the vision of human flourishing that Christians are supposed to believe in. We should know how to do love the best. We're connected to the author of love, and yet we so often fail to. But I do believe that healing is possible, and that we can rebuild the guardrails and create that canopy of care over vulnerable and suffering people, and over our children who are just being chewed up and swallowed alive by the predatory global porn industry. We can rebuild those guardrails, those moral guardrails, if you like.
Yeah. And stop being so naive about the devil's work. I mean, I think that's
Yeah,
a big part of the exposure of this and why
yeah.
it's really important that you're telling the truth and you keep telling the truth. And the prophets eventually get heard. Eventually. We're believing this together as prophets. We believe it. But thank you so much for all that you're doing, Melinda.
Absolute pleasure.
Collective Shout, we'll put the link in the show notes, but guys, collectiveshout.org. Go check them out. Get everything Melinda writes. It's always a deep dive into justice and truth, and it'll do you good. And get to that next book. We need you.
Thank you so much, Danielle. I so appreciate it. It's just been such a pleasure to talk to you and to receive your encouragement today. And I hope we can work together more going forward and catch up with you somewhere in the world.
Yeah, that's got to happen.
That's